Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Show. Thanks for joining us to lead, learn, and laugh. I'm Michael Bull, your host to the world of commercial real estate. Well, today we'll talk to some experts in the world of architecture, design, and construction. You know, as the economy has improved and commercial real estate fundamentals have also improved, new development is really heating up. Well, today we'll look behind the curtain and share the latest with you. Please welcome my first guest, Kermit Baker, Chief Economist with AIA, the American Institute of Architects. Kermit, thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be here, Michael.
Well, thank you, Kermit. And first of all, if you can let us know, what do you see for construction levels out there right now, and how does that compare to kind of recent years and maybe pre-recession? It seems like we're seeing a few more cranes around.
We are. We're finally starting to see some progress, but we really have a long ways to go. We saw, the industry took tremendous hits from its peak in 2008 up down until its trough in early 2012. We estimate from government data that we lost about a third of business in non-residential building activity. And 2012 saw a bit of a recovery. 2013, unfortunately, was kind of just moving sideways. So we still have a long ways to go. I think we're getting off to 2014 with some good solid fundamentals, good tailwind behind us, so I think it'll be a great year for construction this year.
Okay, so what do you expect levels to increase by this year or next year? I mean, do you see...
We run a consensus forecast where we talk to the major organizations that forecast building activity, and they're pretty optimistic about the year. On average, they're seeing close to 6% increase in spending on buildings. And 10% on the commercial side, a little bit less, about 3% on the institutional side. So, I think those are good solid numbers. We expect to see construction activity grow faster than the economy this year, and as I say, begin to make up for several years of weakness that we saw during the downturn.
Okay, and how will that affect jobs related to the construction world? I know the construction level jobs seem to also help the economy. Do we see levels picking up in architecture and construction?
Yeah, construction jobs are very critical for the economy. They tend to be pretty good paying jobs and tend to really kickstart the local economic base of many areas across the country. On the architecture side, we saw big hits. We saw almost 60,000 employee positions, payroll positions lost during the downturn, and we've just gained back a small share of that. But we expect to see it pick up by 2-3 percentage points in 2014. On the broader construction side, again, huge losses. Lost about 170,000 construction jobs, and again, hope to see that pick up by about 2 or 3% in 2014. So, slowly but surely edging back up to getting us close to levels that we saw before the downturn.
Okay, we're talking with Kermit Baker, Chief Economist with AIA, the American Institute of Architects. And, architecture industry revenues, I guess, were also a good sign of what's going to happen in the future. It seems like zoning attorneys that I talk to and architects that I talk to seem to be a lot busier. Where are revenues for the architecture industry now?
Well, they're starting to pick up. We track and have been for the last 20 years now. Been tracking Billings activity at architecture firms. We call it our Architecture Billings Index, and we feel that it provides a really very good indicator of where the overall construction market is headed. And architecture billings started turning up around the middle of 2012, and we've only had a couple down months over that year and a half. Kind of ended 2013 on a bit of a weak note. We think a lot of that was weather related. Just couldn't proceed on construction projects as fast as we would hope for. 2014, we just today released our January Architecture Billings Index, and even with the tough conditions that we saw across big parts of the country in January, our Billings Index did pop back up. So it looks like we're getting into 2014 with a bit of an upturn in terms of design work at architecture firms.
Well, that's a good sign of things to come, I assume. And so what are the hot sectors? What are the hot property types that you expect to see moving forward, new construction?
Well, the downturn on the non-residential side, the downturn began on the commercial side. The upturns began on the commercial side. So, spending numbers for hotels, for retail, and even office buildings are up at a pretty strong pace. And as I suggested, we expect to see, our consensus forecast is projecting 10% growth in commercial spending across the board in 2014, and another 10%, 11% in 2015. And that's really pretty even across the major categories. Strong growth on the hotel side, strong growth on the office side, strong growth on the retail side. All three of those sectors at or very close to double-digit growth for both 2014 and 2015. The institutional sector is generally takes a little longer to recover. It held a little stronger before it headed into a downturn back in 2008, taking a little longer to pull out of that downturn now. So, most of the major institutional sectors were still negative for 2013. Healthcare, one of the stronger ones, but it saw a modest decline last year. Education declined. Government facilities, public safety, religious, really all modestly down in 2013. 2014, we think that recovery is going to begin. Slow single-digit growth in 2014, mid 5-6%, 7% potentially in 2015. Strongest major sector is likely to be healthcare. For a couple reasons. One is certainly the demographics support that as we baby boomers move into our 60s and 70s. Spending on healthcare is going to pick up. And then, in all likelihood, the Affordable Care Act is going to trigger some construction of health-related facilities to accommodate the new folks that are covered under that program. Education, very much driven by demographics and bit of a weakness on some of the demographic areas during the downturn. Birth rates were down. Marriage rates were down, and so a bit of a pause there. But as the economy picks up, the demographics will pick up, and expect to see the education markets, really the K through 12, begin to pick up over the next several years.
I see. And a lot of people we talk to suggest that new development may be tempered a little bit by rising construction costs. Kermit, what do you see for construction costs right now and how they compare to recent years?
Well, there's a lot of volatility in construction costs, and probably more volatility than we would expect, given how weak the construction markets, particularly the non-residential markets, have been over the last 4 or 5 years. So, the government tracks this, and they're telling us over the last year, construction costs have been up 3-4% over the past year. Probably not a lot of that is on the labor side because the unemployment rate is still so high. But some of it on the material side, and material sides, prices have really been kind of all over the board recently. We're seeing double-digit increases in, gypsum products and insulation materials, lumber and plywood, sort of the basic commodities used in home building, and that segment's been stronger. But the metals prices are down 5, 6, 7% over the last year, after being high 3 or 4 years ago. So kind of a bit of a roller coaster on the material side, and as the market begins to heat up, I think there's more potential for volatility in materials prices moving forward.
In a 15-second answer, what do you expect for construction costs over the next year? Where do you expect they'll head?
I think they're going to be up. I think they're probably going to be up 3-4%. But I do think that it really depends on the specific product that you're looking at. That average is not going to be a good representation of most of the key commodities, which, like I say, could go anywhere from 5-10% down to 10-15% up.
Kermit Baker, thanks for joining us, sir.
My pleasure, Michael.
Be sure to check out AIA's website at aia.org for more information. I'm Michael Bull. This is the Commercial Real Estate Show. We'll be right back. The Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you by Atlanta Office Liquidators, new and used furniture liquidators, France Media, publications and conferences, and Bull Realty Commercial Brokerage, a great place to do business. For more information on these companies or to access additional podcasts, videos, or blogs, visit commercialrealestateshow.com.